I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast. Podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my fellow hosts Corey and Finn, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @intwreckpod. That's @INTWRECKPOD. Well, boys, another week. Another late stage caution, another little bit of controversy, another long bit of commercials and not seeing races on the broadcast. What do you guys think?
The commercials were better.
They were better. I remember you saying
it was better.
You said 14 laps.
Okay, it was 14 laps, and the beginning of the race. Now, I will preface everything that I have to say about Phoenix with the fact that I enjoyed it because of Chase Briscoe. I'll just be totally cool with that. The guy was flying. He made it all the way into the single digits for the first time this season. So I had fun. I would understand why some people whose drivers were less fortunate on Sunday maybe didn't enjoy it quite as much, but here we are. So I'm biased, but I had a great time, and I don't know. It was better than Vegas. I'll say that.
Really, I felt like I liked Vegas a little bit more because you were able to watch people catch and pass, right? That's always my metric for the intermediates and in a track like Phoenix. Obviously, we talked about it last week. This is the first race where they're testing a new package out, right? With the 2-inch spoiler and less of the my brain, the diffuser, right? They took some parts out of the bottom of the diffuser to try to take away some of that downforce. But it really, especially when the guys that we were watching, like Chase. Chase had a very, very fast car the other day, and there were just points where he would just catch a car and he just couldn't get by him. In fact, the only person that seemed to be able to catch and pass was Kevin Harvick, especially up front, which was really impressive for him to not only catch and run Larson down, but I felt like he passed him with relative ease. Didn't have to pin him behind a lapper, just caught him and under him. So Jeff Gluck, who I've talked about him before, his good race poll he always asks after was today a good race? Was Phoenix a good race? 55 at the time I saw 55% said no, and I think it's because of that. And it might be the track. It might not be the package. It might be the track. Just tough to pass, man.
Well, a lot of people do say, I mean, you were saying during the race while we were watching, and other people I've heard make the exact same statement, that it's, to put it this way, Phoenix as the penultimate season track, right? The one that ends the whole season, the one that's for all the marbles as the championship. People have said for a long time that they don't know if Phoenix should be the one. Right. And it's a point of view that I understand. I can get where people come from. I can also understand why it's that way. I mean, generally, that restart coming in onto the diving corner with the current iteration of the track, it's excitement. It's fun. There's something to that makes things interesting, particularly in a situation like what we just had, where you have that late caution at the end, it goes into overtime, and you're at that last little bit, and it's a free-for-all, and everything's flying 5 wide. I understand the concept that they're trying to make it like, hey, it's for all the marbles, and everybody is going nuts, and this is the perfect track to have people going 6-7 wide, coming around one turn just to get that little bit of an edge and find the clean air. I understand that element of it, but for the actual substance, the actual meat and potatoes, the entire race itself, I do think there's something to say about whether or not Phoenix is the championship caliber track that it is made to be.
I think the restarts are awesome, right? Like you can't dispute the restarts at Phoenix are as good or better than any other track on the circuit as far as I'm concerned. But the only driver who seemed to have any real get up and go and catch the guy in front of me speed was Kevin Harvick on the long runs, right? Because the Byron and Larson were killing everybody off the line. Like it was okay, who's going to take the lead and whatever. And then we see at towards the end of the race, Harvick decides to decides. But he finally finds some speed on the long run, is able to catch and pass those guys, and would have won the race going away if it wasn't for that last caution, which in my opinion was legitimate. The guy was throwing debris all over the track, and what are you supposed to do, right? So sucks for Harvick, but Phoenix this race showed that the long run. I said the same thing last week. Like, I don't want to be the guy who needs cautions and restarts in order for the race to seem exciting. I don't want to be that guy. But that's kind of how it feels at a track like Phoenix, where the restarts are so awesome, and then the long run is mostly boring.
Yeah, I think that's a downside too is stages don't really allow long runs to develop, right? Yeah. None of the stages were longer than 125 laps, and the fuel window on these cars is around 90 for Phoenix. So while they did have to pit once, you get just long enough of a long run for them to pit for tires, and they're not pitting because they need to for fuel. They're pitting because everybody else pit. You're cutting the stage in half, and once they get tires, if you try to hold off, you're going to get caught and ran down. But if these races were a little bit longer, maybe there's a situation where we do one stage has a caution, and then stage 2 is a waving, or it's a green flag stage. You stay through it. I would like to see that at these shorter tracks because, think about last year at Richmond when we went to the race, and that was a situation where Denny played a long run gamble. He ended up, I don't know if it was better fuel, better tires, or whatever the case was. And, and then it's all about can the guy with, worse tires find a way to fend off this dude running him down or situation. Another thing, too, is long run speed seems to be, if you're not second or third out of a restart, it doesn't matter if you have long run speed. You'll never be able to make up enough ground to catch the leader who's just going to check out. And that was,
the guys were getting mired in the back, couldn't do anything.
Right. Like that. The reason that Larson and Harvick were so close is because, there was a pit cycle, but it was because out of a restart, I think for the third stage, Harvick never let him get away. That long run speed, unless you're second or third, you're not really going to ever catch up to them. And back in the day, I felt like if you had long run speed, you were able to really start mowing down and running. And that's how those setups get set. So I wouldn't say I could compare the two Vegas because I felt like the guys that had speed were able to catch and pass cars. It was this race where I just really felt like they couldn't. But after bitching and moaning about why is nobody taking two tires? Finally at Phoenix. We see
Harvick
the two.
Burned.
What you got, Jeff?
Well, I was gonna say, like, this raises a question for me that I've been curious about and kind of been thinking about, like, at the end of this race, because that brings up a good point. I wonder, at least I'm kind of wondering, is this William Byron's breakout? Are we seeing that season from him right now? Is William Byron going to look like that dude? And is that what it's going to be? The only reason that I am questioning it or thinking about it at all is mainly the fact that we have seen William Byron get into clean air and run. That is what we have seen out of William Byron this year. We have seen him get in front, stay in front, drive in front, and enjoy a nice drive out in front of everybody else, hoping to try and get out in front of him.
Yeah, with a teammate right behind him.
Yeah.
Well, so that brings me to the other point. See, because you bring up like someone like Kyle Larson, for example. We know that Kyle Larson can come from the back to the front. We know Kyle Larson can go from in an adverse situation towards the back, having a car get beat up, and genuinely just will his way up to the front through pure driving skill. We know that he can do that. We have seen him do it on more than one occasion. I'm not taking anything away from Byron in that case. I just don't think I have seen him do that yet. So I'm hesitant to, throw crowns, or in his case, very, very large crowns on him for that. But I think we are looking at what could be a very good season for him, particularly if he can continue to qualify well and, find a way up front early, because he has the potential to stay there regularly.
Yeah, I'll go here.
Go ahead, bud.
One thing I was just going there is the story of William Byron, right? William takes over the 24 car, and they actually had Chad Knaus as his crew chief for a while. And I don't know the exact order, if he was his first crew chief or whatever, but things just weren't working for those guys. In fact, their only win, and his first win in the Cup Series, came at that final. It was the final Daytona race before the playoffs, so he snuck into the playoffs, you know. And then you look at like last year, right, where he won that Atlanta race, which was solid. He did win Martinsville, which is a snooze fest, again, because of the package. Looks like he got out front. I think now these, and then of course he had a great run where he got dumped at the end of the Southern 500. Well, I can't remember. No, it was the first Darlington race, not the second one. The first Darlington race against Logano, and Logano pushed him. So I think these are. I don't know if I'm ready to say he's breaking out. He's certainly on track to. They've got good speed in that car. All the Hendrick cars are really, really fast. But these are the first two wins where I felt like, hey, Willie B is wheelman in this bad boy. But again, he's getting up front. He's qualifying well. Those are all good signs. I'm not saying butts or he's bad or whatever. But I do think he's not quite at the level we're seeing where guys can start deeper in the pack. You know, think Auto Club. Chase Elliott was dead last. And then by the end of the race, he's chasing down Kyle Busch. If he had 3 more laps, there's a good chance the 9 wins that race. The 9 won his championship starting in the rear at Phoenix and drove through the pack. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm always happy to see the Hendrick guys doing well as a Hendrick fan. And it's really cool to see that, yes, he's leading out front, but then when it's final restart, green, white, checkered, somebody's got to find a way to win. He goes back to back and wins them. So that's another testament to just pure driving ability. Hey, everybody's on new tires, or hey, you're on worn tires. Figure it out. And he's able to wait. That's the sign of a guy that can make a run in the playoffs, because that's going to be important.
He is impressing me because he is a guy who is taking advantage of a scenario that he's been placed in. Right? He's not shrinking from the moment. He is in the fastest car in the field, and he's using it to go to the lead and win races. I mean, what else is there to say, right? He's in the fastest car, and he's not blowing it. If he was blowing it, we'd be having the exact opposite of this conversation.
Right.
So, you know, when you jump out to leads like he has, and you lead races the way that he has, and you've had, I mean, dude, I feel like Kevin Harvick's the only non-Hendrick car Byron has seen come up behind him.
Right.
For a couple races now. And I mean, it's what Hendrick is doing right now. I mentioned, I think, in our first episode that what I didn't get to witness last year was dominance. And that's what we've seen. I mean, granted, it hasn't been one guy, it's been 2 guys. But these 2 guys have dominated these last 2 races, aside from the Kevin Harvick thing. I mean, I don't know if it's a Byron thing or a Hendrick thing or a 24 car thing or what it is, but he looks straight up unstoppable right now. And it's really impressive to watch.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's the one thing is that I want to make sure with the initial point there too, is that one of the best things you can do for yourself in almost any race that you enter is to qualify well. And when you qualify well, it is a sign that you are handling your car well, and they gave you the good car to get out there and run with. Like Corey, you made a great point about that. So it is nothing to take away from what Byron has done.
Absolutely not.
It's one of those things that when we talk about storylines, we talk about great drivers, we talk about, you know, the best that are out there. We're typically talking about the folks that, you know, find their way to the front whenever they need it. We're talking about the folks that are usually finding their way to pass. But to that same point, this is racing. You know, you get in the best car. You hope you have the best car. You drive it the best that you absolutely can, and you want to try and get to the front and stay there. Right. That's the entire object of the game. It is as simple as that. And anybody that has ever watched, you know, other circuits and other forms of racing, you watch F1, for example, and you see what it was this past 2 weeks ago at Bahrain. You saw Max Verstappen get up in the front, and you didn't really see much else happen at the front. You know, and that happens quite a bit for guys like him, or in the past when you'd see Lewis Hamilton do the same. Right. So that's racing. Right. I mean, that is what it is. So I don't want to take anything away from him. Right. I'm just kind of wondering, I want to see him have that middle of the pack to the front run at some point too, to kind of complete the circle.
And we give them an unfair expectation. In fact, we've done a lot of stuff on this podcast, going back and looking at all of the different eras of NASCAR. And I would say, William Byron's 25 years old. This is unheard of this era in the past of NASCAR, where a 25-year-old is a 4 or 5 year veteran in the Cup Series. It used to be you were making your debut at 25, 26 years old. That's what you were as a rookie. That's how it used to be in the early 2000s and stuff like that. You weren't considered hitting your prime until you were in your 30s. That's when the expectation starts falling on you. But guys like Logano came in. Guys like Kyle Larson came in. Young guys changing the game, and then the expectations change. So Willie B is 25 years old. Okay, he is hitting his stride where now he's got a lot of experience. He's confident in all facets of the race, the long green flag runs, managing tires, restarts, when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive. He's learned all of those things. So this might just be it. It might just be the talent has been there. The maturity is catching up to it. And now he's like, ooh, I know how to do this. Ooh, hey, I've seen these laps in these cars, or I've done laps in these cars so many times. I know how to qualify now. Instead of going out there to qualify to finish, to get 15th or 10th, he's like, hey, I can go for poles now. I'm aggressive. I know I've got, it's muscle memory on these tracks. So, really cool stuff from them. One thing I did want to point out is what somebody asked me while we were during the race was, why didn't Kevin Harvick take 2 tires? And simply put, it is terrifying to be the leader in those situations. If you're going down pit road, everybody else could stay out. Everybody else could stay out. And guess what? You're starting 20th. Yeah, so what? It's a 2-lap run. When the first caution came out, it was a 5-lap. There was 5 laps left. So we were going into the green flag with 3 to go, right? So what if everybody stays out? It's terrifying to pit because, A, they can all just do the opposite of you. And then, B, when they do come pit down, everybody's going down pit road, and everybody, all the spotters, everybody's communicating, trying to see who in the top 10 is taking 2 tires. Are they fueling? Are they taking 2 tires? Are they taking 4? And pretty much the first person in pit row, from what I've heard reported, was that William Byron was taking 2. So then all of the spotters see that. They see him pull in. They see they've only got 2 tires prepped to get ready to go. So they can, yell over the radio, hey, they're taking 2, audible, quick audible, the crew to taking 2 tires. But guess who was pitting right in front of Byron? Was Harvick. And Harvick's team, he's already in the stall by the time that can get relayed. You don't want to have guys, and we saw it last week, right? There's so many things going on. You can't just make a call in the middle of it, They're jumping cars. They're fucking. They don't have time to hear. And if one person mishears, somebody could die. Yeah. Somebody get ran over by a car. A tire doesn't get loose, or a guy comes flying around and he's halfway through a tire before things happen. You never know what can occur.
We saw a fall on Sunday.
You said what?
We saw a fall on Sunday.
Oh, was it Byron's guy? I think he got dragged. Yeah, I think William Byron's guy was
on their back at pit road at one point.
I think it was Willie B's guy. So, so that's what happened.
The Harvick tires thing. It's got to be the toughest call.
It's very tough.
You know what I mean? What is a tougher call than that? Being the leader with 5 to go, you just come off of a long run where you came out and took the lead. You're not in a good spot. It's those are the, that's why those guys get paid the big bucks, I guess, is the short end, right? Right. They made a call and they were wrong, right? You're going to be wrong sometimes. And that's just the nature of the business. And it sucks. I would love to see Harvick win. I bet you if it happens again in the fall, he's going to take 2.
Because Reddick took 4 and he was flying around the outside. I think the bigger issue is not so much that Harvick took 4 tires, was that he took 4 and then he went middle. So he got squeezed up on the restart, and there was nowhere for him to go. Whereas Reddick went high, gave that push to Byron. Reddick is the reason Byron won the damn race. It's because he came flying around on 4 and decided to push him. If he goes down low and pushes Blaney, then he could push Blaney, get underneath, and then we might see Reddick bump Blaney, do a bump and go. So it's a tough one, but it is what it is.
So one of the things that people have been asking us about for a good while now, and kind of been pleading and wanting to know, and when talking about how we want to communicate with fans and folks that have been listening, people have asked us for a mailbag. So you got it. And people have actually submitted some questions this week. So, Finn, what do we got? Looks like Tom sent us a question. I believe it was about nutrition, something like that, right?
Yes, nutrition. Tom, doesn't Tom work at like a one of those nutritional stores or something like that?
He used to. If
Okay.
you ever need to know anything about vitamins
Supplements.
and minerals, I know a guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. So Tom reached out and he said that watching the last podcast about the pit guy, the utility guy who comes out and he can give the driver different things. He said this led me down a rabbit hole on the internet where I read up that drivers can lose up to 11 pounds of water during a race and that this can happen weekly. He said that's approaching UFC fighters' levels of weight cutting. And those guys don't even do weight cuts weekly. So what are their diets and maybe even supplements taken to be able to handle that kind of load on a weekly basis? And one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up with that is not just talking about water weight, right? What causes you to lose water weight? You guys drive all the time. If you drove now from here to Florida, that's well over 500 miles, right? Right? I don't know.
It's 800 miles.
Yeah, 800 miles. You're not losing 11 pounds.
No.
Doesn't matter
I'm
if you're
gaining 11 pounds.
I was gonna say, I mean, that's a couple of stops at your Bojangles or your local your McDonald's or gas station snacks for 13 hours. You're not really burning pounds when you're doing that.
So let's talk about it. We've talked a little bit about it before, but drivers are facing upwards of 120 to 160 degree Fahrenheit conditions inside the car. 120 to 160 degree Fahrenheit. You can cook an egg with that, and also you're wearing a fire suit. Okay, there's no, you're not wearing anything that's
not
airflow in the legs. There's
No.
nothing, right? I mean, the ball sweat on these guys out of the race has got to be absolutely
they
abysmal.
have to smell atrocious.
Oh, dude. Hey, but
Well, I mean, that's the other thing is like, I know it's been a thing I know people have wondered with this being the case. Yes, there have been and are, and it's not uncommon for a driver to have to go during a race. And if you've noticed, they don't hop out of a car on the pit stop. You know what I'm saying?
I did Google if they wear diapers. They don't, because that kills the whole flammable. They also can disintegrate with all the heat and the sweat. So the last thing you want to do is a bunch of flares of soaked, ripped diaper.
Drivers with diaper rash, yeah, that probably wouldn't be
diaper
very
rash probably isn't going around. So, how do we combat those things? So, one of the things here I'll show on the screen is these things called FAST, F-A-S-T, cool suits. So, what these are is
I need to get one of these for the summer race at Richmond.
just wear it there on the sideline.
Yeah, man, just sitting there right.
You could just get a camel pack. We could just get a camel. Just get a camel bag, dude.
What are y'all complaining about? I'm feeling good.
But basically, these things hook up to a system in the car that's pumping cool air into your suit, all over your heart and your other, your extremities, and then that'll cool down the body. So that's what these systems are for. That's what the drivers wear underneath. You can kind of see the hose here, and that's pulling air. Also, if you ever see the drivers inside of the cars, they've got a thing that hooks up to the helmet that pushes air down inside of the helmet as well. Again, after a while, that's all hot air getting pushed. But there's how you combat the heat. Another thing to mention is beats per minute. They average 120 to 150 beats per minute for 3 hours long races. That compares to that of a marathon runner. So obviously, we could get into the debate of is NASCAR a sport or that, but I would say you have to be at least used to it or an athlete. Now, in the F1 realm, there's a kind of a stricter diet for these guys because they need to maintain their weight because the cars and the setups are actually built to the F1 drivers' weights. So those guys have an expected weight that the setup's built around. They need to maintain that, thus their diet a lot more strict, whereas in NASCAR, I would say you don't really see that too much. You see some guys like maybe like Brad Keselowski, which are, a little bit on the heavier side, a little bit of a gut, is what it is. I'm not shaming anybody. You also see guys like Jimmy Johnson and Matt Kenseth, who are known as, they do a lot of cycling, cardio-heavy sports, triathlon running in the off-season. Hell, Jimmy was known to get to a track, and they'd take the bike around the track, which, of course, you're at a racetrack. Why not take the bike around, stay in shape there? So there's some things, and I did end up finding a pretty cool Chase Elliott interview. So here's some answers from this Chase Elliott interview. I linked that in the description below if you want to check it out. It's from GQ, Chase Elliott, Real Life Diet. His diet, he says, typically I eat grapefruit and a banana in the morning. Before the race, I'm pretty strict on a grilled chicken type lunch with rice and corn. Don't eat a ton because I don't want to feel full during the race. He said, I have a product I use from Shakely. It's like a hydration mix. I have a little bottle that sits under my seat. On a hot day, I'll run out fast, but I'll have bottles of water given to me on pit stops, and he'll mix hydration powder. I'm just imagining Chase Elliott whipping around
bottle of
Charlotte.
boiling water into your seat.
He's whipping around Charlotte with his knee on the wheel in the corner, shaking a hydration mix in, shaking it up.
Well, and that was when you brought the thing up last week about the utility guy bringing them sandwiches. I'm thinking to myself, there's one of two things that's going on. They're either eating a sandwich under green flag, going full speed, or they are wolfing it down before green flag, which I would imagine is what has to happen, right?
I love the idea of going under caution,
and
you don't finish a sandwich before you go green, so you have to put it somewhere, and then you're driving around, and then it drops. So again, you're like, oh shit, hold on.
Yeah. It's funny to me that we talk about that, and Tom's mind immediately goes to nutrition, and my mind immediately goes to the logistics of how to eat a sandwich while I'm driving
with a helmet on. With a helmet on.
Yes.
I mean,
I'm thinking of Talladega Nights right now, and just imagining the scene when he's like, "Oh, I'm spilling my macchiato." He's like holding the mug of coffee.
No.
And he's
Those
trying
things
to,
were probably different back when, like the Dale Senior, when they had the open helmets, right? So it's easy to snack. And I would imagine it's things like the hydration mix. Or another thing that he mentions is the like the Gatorade capsules, like the energy capsules.
Yes.
That's something big. But
some guys get protein packs, like when they get into the pit stop. Like you had mentioned sandwiches. Nowadays, it more so looks like one of those, like, the little pastes that you can feed your cat with, like the salmon flavoring. Right. They kind of have a similar like type of deal like that, like the Gatorades and the other stuff like that will make those little
it's like a liquid power bar
pastes and stuff. They'll do those kind of things, or a protein bar during a race or something like that as well.
Right. I mean, you always say Silver Spoon, Austin Dillon, Joey Logano. These guys come from money. They're handed their ride. I tell you what, they might be handed their ride because of daddy's money or whatever. But you still earn my respect. Driving around in a race car that fucking hot, eating fucking paste and losing 11 pounds. I mean, Austin,
you gotta want it. You gotta want it.
You gotta want it.
Even if
that's not for the weight. That's not.
Get your ride.
This isn't trust fund baby shit. It's hot, and it doesn't get any cooler just because daddy's rich. Now, obviously,
also you're still getting wrecked while driving 100 meters.
Oh, another thing too is you just
let's not forget that
getting smoked.
It's not easy.
So, and then the second question. And I did look up supplements. I don't think, Tom, that anybody is taking any special supplements that I think are kind of universal around the sport. One of the things I did see is hydration all week long, because it takes multiple days to recover. So making sure they're drinking water all week long to stay hydrated seems to be huge. So at least in Chase Elliott's case, it's you mix in beers with water. He just mixes in waters with his snowboarding runs, but I think for now it's just going to be water for poor Chase Elliott. The next question, though, is from Pete, and it kind of is a callback to what we mentioned about the restarts, which is Pete said, is NASCAR more rigged than the 1919 World Series? 2 weeks in a row, we've seen a late, questionable caution. It's starting to feel like anytime a race is coming to an end without much excitement, someone throws a Mario Kart banana peel to bring everyone back together. My answer to that is,
I love the wording.
he was upset. And Pete is a guy, was he not like leading the like money pool both times, or whatever the case it was?
He's won once and been in it twice.
Oh, my guy lost some money on that Harrison Burton spin, I'm pretty sure.
So, obviously at Vegas. So I think the Vegas one was a little rough. I don't think the Eric Almirola wall hit maybe necessarily called for a caution, which then if the Vegas one doesn't happen, we're not freaking out about the Phoenix one all that much. I mean, at the end of the day, if a car is spinning across the front stretch and there's debris everywhere, you got to throw it, right? That is what it is. The race would have ended under regulation, though, so like it still would have been a 3-4 lap run under regulation, not like a 4-screen white checkered. I'm not too mad about that. But what I am concerned about is I don't care about the individual race. Yes, those things suck. It is what it is. That's NASCAR. That's what happens when you race on ovals, and we have to have full course cautions every time a yellow flag gets flown. My issue is that because we are a one race to win it all championship, that this could happen and this could effectively decide the championship. A situation that you could go and you could effectively win 9 races out of the 10 playoff races. You could win 9. Get to Phoenix. Be winning. One caution comes out and you don't win that race. And even though you won 9 out of 10 playoff races, you win the championship. And maybe we spend a section in the future talking more in depth on what we think would be the best championship thing. But that's where I have an issue with cautions and NASCAR trying to have their Game 7 moment. Simply put, you just got to let them race. So that's where
I have some difficulty getting behind the "it's rigged" crowd, which does seem to be like a popular kind of meme right now. I get that it's out there,
yeah,
but
that's some lore for you.
Yeah, I don't know, that spin at the end of the race, the guy's spitting debris all over the place, man. Like,
Right.
if that's not a caution, then what's a caution, right? Okay, so there's a giant plume of smoke. There's a guy sideways. His tire blows up, spitting debris all over the track. I wouldn't want to drive over that mess 170 miles an hour.
Right.
So, I don't know. It sucks that here's the problem as well. Like you mentioned Vegas. Okay, my other issue is both times at Vegas and at Phoenix, the beginning of the race was pretty much caution free.
Right.
So the only caution we have seen is right at the very end. And I don't think it's rigged as much as it feels that way, because it's like, okay, well, why wasn't there a caution on the lap 20? Why wasn't there a caution on lap 40 when these guys are on older tires and whatever?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's rigged. No. Does it suck for Kevin Harvick and then Kyle Larson? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you can't ask
sorry you lost some money, bro.
Right, you can't ask like the bottom 20 cars to pit with 10 laps to go, so they won't accidentally affect the end of the race.
Sure.
There's no right thing. I mean, nobody wants to junk a car, right? That's not the intent. You're losing money by doing that, especially if you're a small team guy. So, I would be more upset if something happened, like a leader got spun. Or one of those situations by like a lapper. I'm not. I mean, it provides excitement, but I am concerned because it leads to the big finale finish, and then NASCAR's like, "Yeah, that's what we're looking for. It was a great race," and it's like, no, it really wasn't. But sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? It is.
Is it rigged, Jeff?
No, I mean it's not.
No.
So, I mean, I don't know if in this format people are going to get to know me that well, in that I'm not that guy. I am very much of the skeptic mindset, and of the like let's look at this factually, let's look at this objectively, and understand the fact that racing is also very much a sport that it's okay when it happens to your guy, but not when it happens to my guy. But that's also sports just in general. But on top of that, no, it's not rigged. This kind of thing happens. The other thing to point out as well, when it comes to these cautions, when it comes to debris, and when it comes to what's happening on the track, there's aspects of this that we don't see. There's a lot of things that are happening that's out there that we don't see, and we likely will never see.
Yeah.
One of the things when it comes to debris that you don't really hear very much mentioned anymore, fluids are also part of that. Like there's aspects that got to get cleaned up. There's pieces of
oil, rubble, cat blood. There's things all over the track that could cause.
There you go, Amber. 3 weeks in a row, Amber.
That's what I'm saying, is that there's aspects to that we're not seeing. I mean, you can be watching races for 20, 30 years, and see what's going on and have a really good idea of how things work on the racetrack and stuff like that. And there's still stuff that you never have seen, and you likely never will. And that's part of it. That's stuff that's happening. There's minutia that happens here that you're just not quite going to understand every last little thing that happens on the track. And that's okay.
Right.
It doesn't make it any less fun and exciting, because what happens this week that may be boring, or what happens this week that may seem like bullshit, or what happens this week that may seem like a problem, could turn into the best race you've ever seen next week.
Right.
That's how this works.
Right. It's a lot of races. So don't get caught
Yes.
up on the one or two that ended. Auto Club was great. Vegas was solid. The race was solid up until it happened, and then even afterwards. Phoenix was a bit of a dud, but honestly, 3 out of 4 pretty solid races to start the year. Hell, even Daytona had a late caution and kind of robbed us of the RFK versus RCR situation, but worked itself out.
Yeah. There's a lot to this. You know, there's just stuff going on that I don't think so. But I understand, I understand frustrations. It is what it is, but no, it's not rigged, and it'll be fun. And don't worry, your guy may have lost this week. He might win next week. It'll be fine. Especially if you're rooting for Hendrick right now. Cry me a river, all right? Your guys are kicking ass and taking names. Like, let's not go acting like, oh no, poor you. You got kicked in the nuts this week too hard. Sorry, it happens.
Right.
Anyway, let's move on from that. So we've got Victory Lane coming up, and this week Corey takes the W. He gets his time, he gets his moment in the sun to bask and talk about whatever he'd like for the next minute or so. What do you got?
Boys. Okay, so first I want to say thank you to Ford for actually showing up and winning this thing for me with my sweet Ford lineup: Briscoe, Blaney, Harvick, Keselowski, and yes, I threw in Larson. I have been a fan of the Washington football team. I'm just going to go for a minute, boys. I'm sorry. I have to. I've never had this opportunity, and I'm taking it. So join me on this. I have been a fan of the Washington football team, now known as the Commanders. I will not say the previous name because I'm a grown-up. My entire life. Dan Snyder is a piece of crap. I've looked for this opportunity to say this, and we're going to name some names. We're going to say some things. I want to thank the Sporting News, first of all. I actually spent time today reading an article on the Sporting News where they break down a timeline of all of the dumb, horrible shit that Dan Snyder has done to this football team. My guy Jeff here, also a lifelong fan, so I'm sure we're gonna do a little call and response right now. Jeff, are you cool with that? I'm going to invite you to join.
So
me.
we're doing the updated version of the Washington City paper from like 2010.
Yes, and credit to the Washington City paper as well. But I got my information from the Sporting News. So let's do some names first. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Deion Sanders, Albert Hainsworth, Donovan McNabb, Scott McLuhan, Steve Spurrier, RG3, Vinny Serrato, Bruce Allen, and now the U.S. Department of Justice, who, thank God, they're involved. All right. What do you think about those, Jeff? Any that stick out to you?
Oh, there's plenty of those. There's some just phrases that I'd throw out there. Things like vanilla ice cream. Anybody that has followed this team and knows this story,
one moment,
they know what I'm talking about.
September 2006, Washington City paper expose on Snyder documents how the team sold bags of peanuts at the stadium, originally intended for distribution on Independence Air, an airline that went defunct the year before. Dan Snyder charged fans of his team for year-old peanuts that he bought wholesale from an airline that went out of business in 2006.
Was it 2008 World Cup beer?
2008. I don't even have the World Cup beer, but I believe you. 2008, we get into the lawsuits. Snyder, through the Stadium Incorporated, files one of his 125 lawsuits against his own season ticket holders who were forced to default on their 10-year, $5,000 agreements after being hit by the recession. The team ended up getting $2 million in judgments after these people defaulted, while being told that while Snyder was telling the fan base that there were 200,000 people on a waiting list for season tickets.
Oh, the mythical waiting list.
He's suing his fans while there is a waiting list because some of them couldn't pay. Finn's laughing his ass off. I can't believe you're letting me do this right now, Finn.
Listen,
thank you so much.
First of all, Dale Jr. is a massive Commanders fan, and I am going to tag him immediately in this.
Okay.
So I'm going to say NASCAR
please.
NASCAR
the pod,
podcast
Dale
goes
Jr.
rogue on Dale Snyder.
Okay, so I got a couple more if that's all right. If you guys will allow me to. All right, let's
You're
go.
good. Keep going.
Okay, Jeff, we got the bingo caller. 2009.
No,
We got the bingo
sure.
caller. Oh, yep. Snyder decides to let lame duck Jim Zorn finish up the season, but strips him of offensive play calling duties, giving them to new consultant Sherman Lewis. I believe this is the infamous vanilla ice cream incident, where he left vanilla ice cream on the desk of his offensive coordinator because he thought their offense was vanilla.
That was
That's
his
your
way
own
of
right
attempting to be cute and creative. I'll also add
buddy.
to that same season as well. Anybody that has been a fan of this team for a long time also knows of the swinging gate. Guess who was at that game?
Oh, you were at that game.
This guy. I was at the swinging gate game. Trust me, it wasn't any more entertaining or any less terrible if you were sitting in the stands than it was watching it on TV. Trust me, it wasn't any less confusing at that time. Sorry, go on.
Well, it's all right. Well, everything that we've just discussed is hilarious and embarrassing as a fan of the team. We're just getting warmed up because the worst is yet to come. 2009, December 17th, 2009. Do you know who they hired? Who did they hire in 2009, Jeff? That's going to be general manager Bruce Allen. Maybe the worst executive in NFL history. This is just, all of this is my opinion. All of it is alleged. I don't have any information on anything. I want to be perfectly clear. I'm pulling all this directly from the Sporting News. So if I'm wrong,
let me add to that, because remember his predecessor before Bruce Allen came, Bruce
was Vinny
Allen
Serrato.
He was looked at as a hero because he was taking over for Vinny Serrato. Somehow you had one person that everybody hated and despised, and then you became somebody that found a way to leapfrog that and become that much worse.
Yep. So, we hire Bruce Allen. 4 years later, we get the infamous quote, the old name, we'll never change the name. It's that simple. Never. You can use caps. The most famous quote of Dan Snyder's life, 2013, where he decided that to tell the entire world that there was no way that the name was ever going to change, of the Commanders, right? We're the Commanders now. The name was never going to change. You can use all caps. We're going to move on from that. Summer 2013, this is when it gets really bad. So if we have to cut any of this, I apologize. But here we go. This is when it starts to get just outlandish. So summer 2013, during an off-season trip to Costa Rica, Washington forces its cheerleaders to be escorts for some men and get naked in front of their patrons. Okay, this is where we start getting into just absolute abject, disgusting.
Dale, please watch this.
I got two more.
You're good.
All right. July 16th, 2020, a Washington Post investigative report details the toxicity of Snyder's organization, from which 15 women accuse former team name employees of sexual harassment. So we got 15 in 2020. And then the last but not least, and this is the big chunk here, but August 26, 2020, the Post follows up its July report with another piece alleging the workplace harassment through Snyder's tenure. 25 more women come forward to the Post, making the total number of accusers 42. The worst claim was that Snyder ordered the team's video department to produce an outtakes video of cheerleaders' private parts that were filmed during the shooting of the squad's swimsuit calendar in 2008. Snyder is also alleged to have suggested to a cheerleader at a 2004 charity event that she join Anthony Roberts, the team's official ophthalmologist, I think that's an eye doctor, and high school classmate of Snyder's, in a hotel room so they could get to know each other better. Snyder, of course, denied both allegations in a statement to the Washington Post. That's all I've got. Dan Snyder is a terrible person. The sooner he sells this team and gets out of my city, my life would just be better. I hope your stupid boat sinks. I don't wish harm on you or your family. You're a horrible human being. Get out of my city. That's Victory Lane.
Victory Lane,
You're a
baby.
small, terrible man. And also shout out to Sally Jenkins from the Washington Post, who has been writing about this slime ball and his acts and his just general awfulness for about 15 years now or more, probably closer to 20 years. That she has called it from the jump that the guy sucks. And she has been writing about it repeatedly, unabashedly, and without pulling any punches for a long time now. And that woman is fantastic for the things that she has put out, and for all the people that attempted to try and deny and doubt the things that she was putting out at that time, and have seen what this person has grown up to now. It's kind of like, Do you see it? Right.
And by the way, as I was going through that and planning out what I wanted to say, I was being pretty choosy. That's by no means a comprehensive.
That is a multi-page
list. We didn't even mention
the
turf that killed RG3's knees,
bro.
So just the franchise quarterback kill. Oh, and the whole him and Cousins. But
if you ask me today whether I'd rather have a Super Bowl ring in 2023 or Dan Snyder gone, that's an easy choice. Dan Snyder, get out of my life.
Right, because then
it's not even close. Him a Super Bowl trophy.
Yes.
Like, does that not at least in some way sour the like? Oh. I've wanted to see it my entire life. I've wanted to see that team win my entire life and see what older people in my family and friends have gotten to see. I've always wanted to see that. But there's just something about the thought of watching him get handed that Lombardi trophy that I'm just like, it would take the celebration down a little bit. Like, what kind of a joy boner killer would that be to watch that man hoist the Lombardi trophy?
Well, getting booed. Without a doubt, would be getting booed.
We're going to give it back to NASCAR now. I love you, NASCAR. I love your content so much. I had to do that. I've never been on a podcast before. I've never had a microphone in front of my face and got to say anything I wanted before to the public. PSA, Dan Snyder's a terrible guy. We're going to Atlanta.
I hope that this is optimal listening for all 20 of you and the 5 of you that are still left.
Jesus. So, kind of replacing History Lane a bit this week. I wanted to introduce some. These guys don't know. It's labeled super secret here. And it's funny that you went to an NFL thing because what is some of the biggest pieces of NFL content that people listen for every week? The new thing that comes out gives people a chance to argue about where their team is amongst the league. And that is Power Rankings.
Oh, dude, I love it.
I have got my top 10. Well, I got my top 15 here. But I'm going to go through. I want as many, if you disagree or agree with the order, as many jeers or boos as you guys would like. All right. It's an open segment. This is my opinions.
Well, let's qualify this. Is this just for this year so far, or is this all time?
So no. So this is going to be as they go, right? As the season progresses. I think, unlike football and things like that, again, what makes NASCAR special is everybody's competing every week, right? And there's, obviously there's different levels of equipment, and that's why I've got Corey LaJoie here starting off at 15th. Corey LaJoie has got, he didn't get it this week because of a rough day, but he started the season off with 3 straight top 20 finishes. And that equipment, fantastic. Corey LaJoie is on the cusp. We're going to a track where last year he was very, very close to winning this race. He was leading with 3 laps to go at Atlanta last year. He ended up getting door. We'll watch that a little bit later. We'll see. I might cut those things because we are about 50 minutes into this. But last year, he got doored by Chase Elliott putting the wall, and Chase Elliott won the race. But for all intents and purposes, Corey LaJoie's been racing well. So all of this is about this year in their current running. Okay. At 14th, Brad Keselowski. I've been really impressed with the 6 and the 17 crew. It looks like they found a little bit of speed up until the end of the race at Vegas. He was running top 10. He was running top 5, possibly going to get himself a win in the Daytona 500 before that caution came out. And he was pretty solid the other day at Phoenix. So 13th, I've got MTJ. I felt like he's going to be a little bit quicker going into the after the Clash win. Felt like that kind of got the monkey off his back, and that he was going to be able to kind of lock in. But he hasn't been as quick as maybe I thought. It's been a couple times where we've gone, whoa, 19's fast. But that's just for small spurts early in the race, right? Number 12, I've got Bubba Wallace. I felt outside of his race Auto Club, where he got all that debris inside of the grill and it blew up the engine. He's been pretty solid. The Daytona 500 is, you get wrecked out into that. It is what it is. But he's scored, I think, back-to-back top 10s. He was the first non-Hendrick car at Vegas. Pretty solid for as far as the Toyotas are concerned for Bubba Wallace. And then the defending champion, Joey Logano. It's just tough to put him outside of the top 10. But honestly, man, you were commenting yesterday about him. Was it you, Jeff, that had him on a fantasy team? And you're like, dude, I'm going to have to take this guy out because he's not looking like Joey Logano. He's not looking like the car that dominated Phoenix last year. So
yeah, He's like, there was just something about it on Sunday. He couldn't make headway, like wherever he was trying to like, but I mean, he definitely improved in the end. He started to look better as they got into the last part of the third stage. First couple of stages though, he just didn't have it, but he somehow like got into his groove there towards the end.
All of these guys have got potential. Obviously, outside of LaJoy, everybody's in gear that can win a race. So I would expect most of these guys to be playoff contenders, especially Logano and Bubba. But right now, these guys are on the outside looking in. So here's my top 10. First driver in the top 10. It's going to be Ryan Blaney. Starting it off with good old Cat Killer Blaney. Finished 8th at Daytona. I felt like he was really, really quick at Auto Club. I don't know if you guys remember. He was passing folks, but he got caught up in a wreck. Solid at Vegas, and then he benefited from the caution and nailed a second place. He's not quite dominating races, but I feel like without a doubt he's been the best Penske car so far.
If you had him any lower, honestly, going back to your last page, all I want to say to that is you need to move Keselowski to 11 and everybody else slot down.
You think Keselowski is really impressive?
I think you had Keselowski too low. I think you can't run around in the top 10 as much as he has and not be almost cracking the top 10 of top drivers. That was my only beef with that page. Yeah. Blaney, I think you saw some speed at the end of Phoenix. He was really giving Larson a run for his money there at the very end, and he's been quick, man. I mean, the whole Blaney thing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's the best in the sport. That's never been my claim. No. But the guy's he's just quick. He's always going to be competing, and he's in top equipment. Him and Logano both, and they're just quick. So I think 10 is probably correct. I'd probably even myself place them somewhere between 8 and 10. So you and I are probably honestly
I would say this 10 to 7, 10 to 6 range is really guys that have got all the potential in the world, but they're not winning. They don't have race winning speed right now. They're showing flashes. They're quick at a race, but they're not out there leading the laps we expect. So there's Blaney at 10. Right after him at 9, we're gonna go Denny Hamlin.
I was waiting for number 9, Jimmy Johnson. Number 8, Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson. 6 through 1, Jimmy Johnson.
6 through
1. This is correct, by the way, with Denny. I feel like that's where he's been sitting for every single race. He's been somewhere right in that 9 region, just floating around
obviously,
in the high single digit.
Right. Obviously, Phoenix would have been a better finish had he not, and he admitted on his podcast, intentionally taken Chastain with him. He said he let go of the wheel and let it go. So NASCAR is actually investigating Denny for his statements. He said he didn't he said he just kind of went to the corner, said I'm going to make it stick. It plowed tight, said fuck it, we're going to ride up into the wall. Chastain's there, don't care, he's going with me. So Vegas, unimpressive. He was kind of decent Auto Club, and then of course he didn't have the Daytona finish. I think he ended up getting wrecked or cycled back. So obviously, Denny's going to be a guy that we all expect in the playoffs, but I just think him and Blaney are kind of underperforming at the moment. So that's why I've got him sitting at 9. Again, these aren't hard rankings. These aren't anything crazy. But just those aren't Denny Hamlin numbers right there.
I think that's fair. And I think
it's early, and he's getting there. And as far as the Ross Chastain situation, I mean, there's 2 ways about this. I mean, for one, for all of last year, during all of the incidents in which Chastain wrecked Hamlin and there was all the tension and there's all the stuff that was going on, how many times during those races did we hear the commentary teams, and did we not see like showcases and little snippets and clips and stuff like that meant to highlight the rivalry between these two? And what's Denny gonna do after Ross has wrecked him last week? Oh no, what's gonna happen? How many times did we see that kind of stuff? So then we get to this year, and Denny, based on my assessment, Denny looked at this and said, can we just move past it? Can we just get this done, make this happen?
I mean, well, he hit him, so
that's what I'm saying. Is like,
I think
most
on the
of the time, I mean, Ross wasn't winning that race, bro, and neither was Denny. Like, at this point, the way it looked was, okay, we're here. It's somewhat inconsequential. Here's my chance to dump him and have it not be the craziest thing and not put a whole bunch of everybody else at risk. Let's make it happen. And let's put this thing on ice that's been going on for a long time.
You and I have different versions of what putting it on ice means. Because that was not putting it on
Saying,
ice. That was
fuck it, I'm letting go of my hands.
We're gonna do this thing again. That's what that was. It wasn't put it on ice. It was the opposite.
I felt like he missed a chance to say, "You like being a wall riding bitch? Let's ride the wall." So
my 2 cents. I don't have a dog in this fight, but that didn't look like let's put this all behind us to me.
Yeah, you could just lift Denny, but I digress.
Well, no, I mean, I'm with that, but like I said, Ross dumped him multiple times last year.
I'm not saying
it was multiple times that this happened.
We're gonna do a counter,
and now
next week is gonna be how many times did Ross hit Denny? How many times did Denny hit Ross? And who's got the count?
But that's what I think. I think that we're looking at a situation in which I think this was more so something to avoid that, because that's what last year was.
Right.
Last year it came down to, oh my God, how many times is this guy gonna dump Denny? And then when is Denny gonna retaliate and dump Ross? And then you had a couple of different situations where Denny started kind of racing him hard, or you'd give him a bump, or he'd come in here and you'd start to see, you're like, oh, this is the moment. This is when it's gonna happen. And it didn't really come. So here we are at the beginning of this year. I mean, as far as I'm concerned,
but it came now.
So
right. So there it is. Cool. Done.
We'll see.
Because they've also,
unless Ross
mentioning the fact that they also talked about it.
They did.
They specifically, at the end of the race, talked about the whole situation.
Yep. We'll see.
Sat there, multiple minutes, conversation, talked about it. I'm sure this came up in that kind of fashion. Like, you good? My good? We done? But that may not have been how it goes, but
time will tell.
Time will tell.
It could be totally wrong. We could go out next week and it could just be an absolute just wreck fest. Who knows? But I just don't think that's what it's going to be.
Real quick, I want to make one prediction before we move forward with this.
Okay.
I think you got one more Toyota in there. Only one.
Only one? You think there's only one more Toyota in here?
I think there's only one more Toyota in there. But we'll see.
Can't remember.
That's my prediction.
So, I mean, yeah, I'd say so. Because there's so many, like so few, and we've already seen Bubba, Denny, and MTJ. I think it's fairly obvious. But here at the 8th spot is Daniel Suarez.
Thanks, by the way.
I feel like the Trackhouse boys have been so quick. He didn't have the greatest day at Phoenix, but he was top 10 before the final caution came out. So 7th at Daytona, quick at Auto Club, top 10 at Vegas, and we're going to a track last year where he not only qualified pole, but he dominated the entire first stage, and he got caught up in a wreck because of the way the pitting strategy works with the stage cautions at road courses. He finished the stage in first, but he started stage 2 in the late 20s, and he got caught up in a wreck, and it ruined his day. This year with road courses, and we'll talk about road courses later next week because that's when the road course is, we don't have stage cautions. I think this is Daniel Suarez's big opportunity to get a win early in the season and kind of focus, but he looks good on all the other kind of tracks he's run. I wager he gets an oval win this year. So Daniel Suarez, Amber's guy sitting there at 8. Any issues? Is this too high for young Daniel?
None. No issues with that at all. And he's in a Chevy on a team that's kicking everybody's ass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, he could probably be higher, but
right.
He's great, man. I mean, he's super fun to watch drive too.
Yeah, he's super talented. He can really wheel it. He's got a couple tracks where he's got some good speed outside of the road courses, and he dominated Sonoma last year. So, road course ringer, he's always going to be that kind of guy. So, in the 7th spot, though, I got my man Alex Bowman, points leader, and the only driver with single-digit finishes in all 4 races. 5th at Daytona, Auto Club. His best track of the year so far has absolutely been Vegas. He was the only guy that was able to kind of track people down on long runs. He finished 3rd, and then he kind of snuck in a 9th place finish at Phoenix. Kind of got lucky probably with that wreck we were just talking about. So Bowman's always struggled with consistency. He goes in, he'll get a win. The last couple seasons, he gets a win, gets 2 wins, but then it kind of feels like he disappears in the summer. It really looks like with Blake Harris coming in as the crew chief, they're finding consistency, they're finding speed. Now the one thing they're lacking is race-winning speed, and that's why he's as low on the list. To put the points leader and the only person with top 10 finishes across the board How do I put him at as low as 7th? 1, because you guys will call me a homer if I don't. And 2, simply put, he hasn't led anything. I don't think he's won a stage. So I think I need that from Alex before we start moving him into the top 5. Any thoughts on Bowman this year?
I mean, Jeff, I don't know if you want to take this one. It's Hendrick right now.
Hendrick,
I don't have it. I will honestly. You could have had him higher, and I wouldn't have called you homer.
Right.
They're unstoppable. If you're talking about removing the actual finishes from the equation, and who is crushing it right now the hardest, it's just Hendrick 1, 2, and 3. You can slot them in any order. They're just faster than everybody else.
And if Elliott was around, he's probably in the top 5 at this rate. And shout out to Josh Berry, actually, for getting 10th in the race. So the Xfinity guy coming up, filling in, finally gets a full practice session in the car. Sneaks in a top 10 in the 9 Chevy.
Number 7 on your list, number 1 in your heart.
Number 2 in my heart. My heart's reserved for Jimmy Jam. All right, here at the number 6 spot is going to be
there we go.
Chris Bell. Honestly, if you take away that 32nd at Auto Club where he sat on the pole, remember he got taken out in that crazy caution where there's a checkup behind Logano. Chris Bell's been impressive. He is 100% taken the mantle as the best car at JGR. After the Final Four appearance last year, some clutch wins at road courses and then Martinsville. Now he's showing speed. Keep in mind, Chris Bell's a dirt track guy, and he's got 2 of his career wins at road courses. So he's by far the best road racer in the Toyota. He's got all of the skill set to be a top mile and a half guy, and he's winning at tracks like Martinsville. Bell is breaking out for sure, and I think him and Byron are really kind of solidifying themselves as futures of the sport here. So a big year from Bell. I wanted to put him higher. It's really not fair to have him. I mean, this is as low as I think you can possibly put Chris Bell. As low as you can possibly put him.
Yeah, easily. I mean, I think he's definitely. I think he's top 5 in most people's in most people's power rankings. I can't see why he wouldn't be.
Yeah, totally.
Him being in it's nothing against Eric Jones, but the trait. I am happy, very very happy about having Christopher Bell and not really sad about not having Eric Jones anymore on the
Jones was
on
fine.
JGR,
He was passable in the 20, but it shows that this has been the right decision because of the regression of guys like MTJ, losing Kyle Busch. JGR was losing relevance quickly, especially if Denny gets interested in having his own ride over at his team. This really kind of gives Toyota, along with Bubba and now Reddick. I mean, it might be a growing curve, but in a couple years, dude, that might be the best trio in the sport, really. So we've got a bright future for Toyota, and it's kind of headed off by Bell.
Bell is the only Toyota right now threatening anyone.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you got
Bubba. I would say Bubba.
I would say, but not really. Not in the same way. Not in the same way.
Yeah, Bell's up front.
Bell is, he's quick, right? And you got your top 5 coming up here. 4 of them are going to be Chevys.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I think I already know who your top 5 is. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist.
Right. There's not too many, but it's all about the order.
He's the only Toyota.
Yeah.
Denny has been good, but Denny's always good, right? Like that's his baseline. He's not threatening anyone yet.
The standard's high.
Right. Yeah.
For
so
sure.
I think Bell right now, if you're scared of a Toyota coming up behind you, it's going to be Christopher Bell.
For sure. At the 5 spot, we're going to have our Ford, Kevin Harvick. Look, Stuart Haas, we talked about their troubles, and then I looked and I was like, man, he's really finishing a lot better than I thought. 5th, 9th, 5th, had the win last week. I should put asterisk on that 5th. I mean, he was fantastic. Phoenix, he owns that spot. Would have been his 10th win there, and of course the 12th place at Daytona. He's looking to ride out with a championship, and that's pretty exciting for him. Hopefully this means that there is some speed in these Stuart Haas cars, and that maybe Elliott, or Briscoe was just bringing a rough car every week. Maybe they weren't unloading well. But Phoenix was a really big jump for Stuart Haas across the board. I think even Priest snuck into the top 10 or close to it.
Yeah.
Late in the race. Briscoe was quick all race long. So finally a good step in the right direction for them. And then Harvick, again, just sitting right there. He could probably be higher. But I think the next group of guys are really tough to match up with.
It was You got to love Kevin Harvick in his final year, looking good. It was awful nice of Stuart Haas to actually bring a car for Chase Briscoe this week instead of renting one when they got to the track. But Harvick's been quick, man. Like whatever you're doing in the 4, just do in all the other cars.
And that
That's
car looks so slick, dude.
Yeah,
the Hunt Brothers Pizza Chevy, the green. Yeah,
I have some difficulty understanding how Harvick has been so good and everybody else on the team has been so bad.
He's Kevin
Like
Harvick.
that just doesn't make sense. Like
he's Kevin.
It's not, man. The 14 car has looked like a rental car.
Well, I get it. The 14 is not driving what the 4 is driving. But at the end of the day, one of the things about perspectives about history and things, it's just like, I'm glad that Harvick's doing well, and I'm glad Keselowski's improving because you haven't really gotten to appreciate in the 1 year that you've watched those two to the max. And have Harvick more so, but like Keselowski is not a slouch, and I think that's something we got to remember. And Jeff will tell you.
That's right. I would have had him higher on the list.
Yeah, you look at Keselowski the last couple years, and you go, whatever. No. Brad Keselowski is a top 5 wheelman in the sport, no doubt in my mind. You put him back in one of these Penske cars, he's winning 2 to 3 races a year. That was Brad for you. So I'm glad to see they've got some pace because they can ruffle some feathers and steal some playoff spots. In the 4 hole is going to be Ross Chastain, who had Denny not wall-rided him. Sorry, that's my daughter. He would be a lot higher. 9th at Daytona, 3rd at Auto Club, 12th at Vegas. He was the points leader. He would have still been the points leader should, again, Hamlin not have wrecked him. I feel like everybody expected Ross to be in the top 5 when I said we would do power rankings. He's been dominant, looks great. Not much to say outside of just don't make too many enemies when it matters the most.
Yeah, I think I'd have some difficulty putting him anywhere over the next 3 guys.
Yeah.
Who even if he hadn't showed up in the 20, let's say he had gotten 12th again in Phoenix, he's still number 4 on this list for me.
Yeah, it's tough. It's
so
tough.
The Denny thing is like I'm not gonna pin him not being higher on getting wiped out by Denny Hamlin. I don't think that's really it. I think that the 3 guys we're about to talk about here in a minute have all been markedly and visibly better than him throughout the year so far. I think he's in the right spot.
He is in the spot where these guys are competing for wins. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody except Stenhouse, who is dropped off a cliff.
Oh, so Stenhouse is
ironically number 3 on the list.
Stenhouse is number 1. Number 3, we're going to go Kyle Busch in the RCR 8s. I felt like he was leading with a couple laps to go at Daytona. First at Auto Club, dominant performance. Since then, hasn't had the greatest runs, but he did come back from 2 laps down at Phoenix to finish 8th. And I believe at Vegas, he got caught on like a restart and some things and got shuffled back. So he wasn't a slouch at Vegas, but he wasn't exactly top 3 speed. He's obviously in lesser equipment this year, but he's still rowdy. And I just felt like with a win, the impressive comeback on Phoenix, fighting through it the other day, I'm willing to put him over Ross Chastain and in the 3 spot. Is this a little high for you guys? Would you put Ross or maybe Bell even higher? I feel like if anybody, Bell has the potential to move up.
I think I would agree with that. It'd be Bell.
Right.
But it's hard to put Bell over somebody who won a race.
6 to 3 right now. 6 to 3 right now is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Is razor thin. Yeah.
Right.
I know where. Well, I mean, obviously, I think we can all figure out the top 3 at this point. You've got Busch in the right place. I think your top 5 has been pretty spot on. I would tend to agree with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Honestly, your top 10.
You got all your controversialness out in your Dan Snyder rant, so I don't know why I followed this.
You're very relaxed right now.
Yeah, you're state of zen. This is where I think we get surprising. William Byron in the 2 spot. 2 wins in the 2 spot, and I think it comes down to this. First of all, Daytona and Auto Club, he was a non-factor. Vegas and Phoenix, he obviously won. But you look at Vegas, and what I see with Byron is a guy who's got a lot of pace, and he can hot lap. He's doing a really good job at hot lap managing his stuff. But I really think he's was benefiting off that clean air because both times where he got caught stuck behind people, that pace went away. And I'm not going to say he shouldn't have won Vegas because Alex Bowman won Vegas last year on a late race caution. People win races because of late race cautions, yes. But Kyle Larson was the better car, persevered all day, had the better pit stop, and then was able to drive away. And even in the long runs at Vegas, he was able to run him down. And you look at Phoenix, again, a situation where once he got past, non-factor. It went to a Larson's race, and then it went to Harvick's race. And it really didn't, he just kind of made the right strategy call. Harvick got screwed. He ends up on the front row and takes advantage of it. I want to say that's enough to make me say you're the second best driver in NASCAR right now, despite having 2 wins over everybody. And then the guy in front of you having 0 wins. But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's fine. I mean, we all know that he's done great. You brought up the point, like his ability to get up to clean air and utilize that to his advantage and just run. That's what he's doing. He's doing it very, very well. We'll see. I mean, I can understand him not leapfrogging. We know your number one's going to be Travis Pastrana. We're aware that's going to be the top. So I can understand him not leapfrogging that. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's an appropriate spot. I think there's an interchangeable factor that could be there when you consider the wins. Yeah. But I definitely understand who number one's going to be and why.
This is completely backwards.
Yeah, you're
completely wrong. You've got this wrong. This is your love affair with Kyle Larson. That's exactly what this is. You just needed Larson to be first. This is not correct. You can't. This is a results business, dude. It doesn't matter how many laps you led. Nothing else matters but winning the race.
I heard
that's it.
The man that leads the most laps is the best driver in NASCAR. That's the thing I heard.
Has a good chance to win. When me, an uneducated guy, is trying to figure out who to pick, yes, that is. Right. But I couldn't. Well, for one, I couldn't take Alex Bowman because you already had him. We're totally not talking about illicit gambling right now. But this is incorrect. I'm sorry. It's just like you can't win 2 races and then.
So my difference right. So the way I feel about it again is if he had won those, for example, if he won those races like how Harvick won that race, right, or how Larson, like if it was a situation where persevering all day behind somebody, making a green flag pit stop, taking the lead, running him down, passing him, and then maintaining, those are situations where I'm like, fuck yeah. Hell yeah, William Byron, you're here. You're the best driver in the sport right now. But he's not doing those things. And not only that, on the other 2 courses we ran, and I'm maybe I'm a little ignorant here. Maybe he got caught up in an early wreck or something out of his control. Daytona's Daytona. It is what it is. And it is really early. But I'm just not quite convinced. Auto Club is the worst finish for Kyle Larson. And if you guys don't remember, 3 laps into the race, his engine blew. That's obviously nothing to do with Kyle Larson, right? It was a complete issue. He had to pit. It wasn't anything. And even then, after they fixed it and he was out there, he had top 3 lap times. I think that you consider the stat that Larson is winning a third of the intermediate tracks that we go to. There's a 1 in 3 chance that the 5 is winning. He is dominating. He is up front constantly. He out-qualifies everybody. And then in both, like at Vegas, the situation, and then even in Phoenix, he's leading or in second under what I would call the normal flow of the race. Yes, obviously a caution comes out and changes everything. But it's the same way that Ricky Stenhouse isn't even touching the top 15, yet he's got a win that other guys don't. Yes, it happened.
But you said, but the consensus is that Daytona is just Daytona.
Daytona's going to be Daytona.
You can't make the argument. The Stenhouse thing to me isn't irrelevant, right? But like if, let's say for example, the roles were reversed, I would have the same opinion, right? If Larson had 2 wins and you had him second, and all the names were just reversed, I would still think it was wrong. That's my That's
fine. Yeah. I don't think that these are perfect. That's where I'm at with Byron, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, which is just like, I'm happy for you. These wins are, even though I would consider Larson better, these wins are huge for Byron and his confidence, and that's only going to make him better at some of the other tracks where he was struggling to finish. And having finished the race and closed it out and gone to victory lane twice in a row, like that does a lot for his confidence. And you know what? In equal equipment, it looks like he can compete with the 5. So that's why I got him at 2.
Both of the last 2 races, Vegas and Phoenix, you would consider to be intermediate tracks. Right? Phoenix is kind of a short-ish track.
For intents and purposes, Auto Club and Vegas use the same package. Phoenix will use the same package that we will see at Richmond in short tracks.
So what percentage of those intermediate races did Kyle Larson win?
Ooh. Oh, man, we'll have to look it up.
Zero.
Zero?
Because William Byron won both of them.
Oh, talk about this
he won
year.
100% of them. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Kyle Larson didn't win a third. He won none, and Byron won both. So what happened last year is kind of irrelevant. That's why I was asking.
it's not that
Is
it's
it
irrelevant.
lifetime, or is it this year?
I still think the 5 is outperforming. I still think he's outdriving William Byron because William Byron can win one shootout in a situation where we have a green-white checkered. That's great for him. But across the course of the race, across qualifying, across the weekend, across practice, across making adjustments and finding ways to not only be in the top 2 and top 1 in stage 1, stage 2, he's also doing it in stage 3. And what I've noticed at stage 3 for both Phoenix and Vegas, William Byron is nowhere to be found. He's 6 seconds behind the leaders, doing nothing, and then a late race caution and some great. Again, they get credit for those strategies. William Byron is looking like one of the best restart guys. That's something that he hasn't had on his plate.
That's true.
But at the end of the day, stage 3, where has William Byron been in any of these races? And all of the ones that his car hasn't died on him, I've seen Kyle Larson in the front battling for wins, whether it is getting passed by Harvick or getting screwed over by the thing at Vegas. So that's why I have him there. But hey, here comes Atlanta. Here comes Coda. That might change that. Here comes Richmond. Now we got 3 tracks that are not at all going to be intermediate tracks. We got a super speedway race, and I think that's that's what we're going to be talking about next. I don't want to get too into it, but I mean, really, that's where we're at. So, well, we'll see how it goes from there.
All right.
Somebody actually just said, just before we get into your next section, it just said on Reddit, I watched some of it and I will subscribe. It's actually pretty good. I was expecting crap, but I liked it. So that's Miss Bartacomas.
That's right.
So if you're watching this episode, thank you very much for giving us a chance. And
Absolutely.
And
reading comments in real time.
So, well, it just popped up on the screen. I think that's really cool for that person to check us out on Reddit. So, all right.
We do shout outs. That is the thing. We are big fans of that. So yeah, I think it's time we should talk about Atlanta. This week, we're not really going to go into the history lane factor. There's some aspects of Atlanta that we're going to get into that are very interesting in regards to the history of the track compared to what it does now. Let me break down some info for you about the actual track itself, and then we'll give it away to Finn to kind of get a little deeper with some of the information. So Atlanta opened up in 1960. The owner is Speedway Motorsports. Last year's winners were William Byron and Chase Elliott. And the track record currently for a fastest lap is 29.531 from Martin Truex last year. And the track lap record in the past was 28.074 by Jeff Bodine. This leads into some of the differences with the track, because the Atlanta that you're going to watch on Sunday is not going to be the same Atlanta that we saw before. We're going to see the difference between a quad oval and a classic oval. That's going to be some of the more details that Finn's going to break into. But in the past iteration of the track, it used to be 1.52 miles, whereas now it's 1.54 miles, which may not seem like it makes a difference, but the actual way that they shape the track is a little bit different. So Finn, why don't you go into some of the details with that?
Right, so we're not doing History Lane this week, but what I am excited, and something similar to this, is when we do History Lane at Richmond, because Richmond, just like Atlanta Motor Speedway, was a track that was previously an oval. So on the left was the configuration of Atlanta Motor Speedway prior to 1997's race, where it's essentially that, 2 straightaways, 2 ovals, 2 round turns, your typical oval. On the right-hand side is what we have been seeing in the sport since 1997, where it actually kind of looks a lot like Charlotte and a lot like Texas, where you kind of have this tri-oval at the top where things kind of coming off of turn 4, kind of straightens out, then it gets straight for the start-finish line, and it kind of creates this dynamic, and Corey, you felt it while doing iRacing. It really, coming off that turn, it really kind of, there's a lot of movement. Kind of sucks you around. You got to be very careful. And then actually, so that actually raced like a 1.5 mile track. Like, again, we've seen it Charlotte, we've seen it Vegas, we've seen it Texas. But now it's different. Last year was the debut of this, but because we've talked about the old packages of NASCAR and it really made these tracks like Atlanta struggle, they did something pretty drastic to this one, and they made it a super speedway race. How did they do that? First of all, at 24 degrees banking was what it was prior. Now they made it 28 degrees banking. They also made it narrower. It was a very, very wide track, especially that front stretch used to be a lot wider. They made it narrower. So now the cars are really, what you're going to see a lot of is very similar to what we saw at Daytona, except everything's a lot more compact. It's not quite as banked as Daytona. Everybody's going to be nose to tail, and it's going to be 2 lines, and they're going to be absolutely ripping. I mean, you said it last year, right? Martin Truex Jr. breaks the track record coming out, and they're on a, they're running those restrictors, on the horsepower and everything, and they're still flying around this track. So it's going to be different. It's going to be exciting. I got some fun facts about the track, actually. Just mentioned here, it narrowed from 55 to 40 feet wide, and then the 4 degrees of banking. Also, the opening scenes of Smokey and the Bandit 2 were filmed at the track. Scenes from Stroker Ace were filmed at the track. And then, let's see. And the track was featured in 1982 Kenny Rogers movie Six Pack. So there's some fun facts for the race. And then what was that one with Channing Tatum? It wasn't Channing Tatum in a NASCAR movie a couple years ago. Lucky something. I don't know. But anyways, they filmed that one at Charlotte, but Charlotte was busy or something, so they had to film some of that at Atlanta. So what they did is they painted all the walls at Atlanta Motor Speedway yellow to match what Charlotte was, because Charlotte used to have yellow walls. So they painted the walls in Atlanta yellow to film this movie with Channing Tatum in it, where they steal something. I don't know. Maybe we should watch that and report on it for the next one. But there's my fun facts about this. I don't really have too much. We've done major coverage on restrictor plates and what kind of racing to expect. It's going to be chaos, and it's going to be just like Daytona. This is where somebody who maybe can't win a race at some of the other tracks is going to have to sneak one. Hell, Corey LaJoie almost won a year ago. What are your thoughts, Corey?
I'm super excited to see a race on a track that has the history of Atlanta that is now a completely new configuration. And these drivers, do you know if they're having practice this week? Because I know they got some practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to have some practice.
Yeah.
I think the racing is better when they have some practice, but I am super excited to see them get out on this track that they've never raced on, because you can't really simulate a race in practice.
They have raced on it. Sorry, just to be clear.
Well, right. Yes. Okay. So they've raced at the track, but they've reconfigured the track this year.
They've raced. No. The reconfiguration was last year. The last year's races.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, my bad. I may have misread that.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I've had this idea in my head that they just did the reconfig. I think
Texas.
I'm mixing that up with content.
Texas has a reconfig, and maybe that's where you thought. Texas is going to be reconfigured going into this year. But Atlanta's race last year that you watched to chase, again, it might not be jumping to your brain, but
it is not.
But yeah,
suffice it to say, I love the high speed super speedway stuff. Give me all of that. Give me every bit of that. I couldn't be more excited for this race.
It's very compact.
Let's see.
That's the difference. It's just not a lot of time to it's not like Daytona where you can fan out and then make things work at the end. No. If you're not in the top 6, I don't think you really have a chance to win the race. So there's going to be a lot more fighting for position in my mind than Daytona. And also, it's not that beginning of the race, beginning of the year. Everybody's nervous. I feel like everybody's settled in now, so we're going to see a lot more guys really sending it.
Jeff, you think Chevy's going to dominate again? Because that's kind of one of my major storylines I'm thinking about for this. You and I are not the Chevy guys, but they've been dominant. It kind of feels like it's going to happen again.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, I definitely think there'll be at least 1 or 2 that'll be up there racing towards the front throughout the majority of the race. But I don't know. I think that one of the things about super speedway racing and starting the season out at a track like Daytona is that you can learn a lot at a place like that. And you kind of learn a lot about what your car's going to do in those conditions. So I think it might shake things up a little bit more. And I think we may see, especially with the Ford starting to kind of come out last week, I think that we might see a couple more Fords in the mix. I don't think you can count guys like Harvick out with the way that he's been running. And I mean, honestly, Christopher Bell is going to Christopher Bell. I think that we're going to be looking at another top 10 from him this year or this week. So no, I mean, I think we might see a little more variety towards the end of this one. I think people are going to learn some lessons from Daytona and take it to Atlanta.
Are we ready for our one prediction then? No dark horse this week. Who's your guys?
Ooh, just number 1.
Who's your
Okay.
guys? I'm not gonna go first this time. And actually, let's let Corey go first so he doesn't have to go with his backup guy.
I'll wait till he goes, so then that way
I'm
I can
gonna-
pick the same one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go way out on a limb here and pick a guy who hasn't really shown a lot this year. His name is William Byron. Haven't seen a lot out of Byron yet.
Second best driver in NASCAR.
No, well, disagree, but it's fine. We have different opinions of that. No, I mean, the guy's been unstoppably fast, and he's qualified well. He's raced well. How can you, if you're not picking the 24 or the 5 to win this race, you're straight up out of your mind. So I leave you with that.
Corey came into this going, I have 3 names for you: Byron, and Byron. These are my top favorite rappers: of Byron, and Byron.
I have a guess. I bet Jeff picks Larson.
Is that where you're going, Jeff, or are you gonna spite him?
My running trend is I'm able to guess Jeff's backup. I'm betting he picked Larson.
No, honestly, I think Kyle Larson's top 5, without a doubt.
This is not where he's good. That's the difference. He's not a speedway racer. Super speedway racer.
I think he's top 5.
Yeah.
I don't think he pulls out the win here. I don't think that's the case for me. If I'm looking at the way I'm thinking personally, I'm going to go with Christopher Bell.
You're going to go Bell?
Yeah, I'm going to go Bell for the win.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, he was really solid at Daytona, right? Led the first, string of laps, can run up front. I am going to go Toyota as well, but I'm not going Christopher Bell. I'm saying the 23. I'm going Bubba.
Yeah.
I think, obviously,
I had a suspicion we were going that route. And I think that's a very solid pick.
These are the easiest tracks to drive, but they're the hardest to take advantage of the little things. And I think because of how narrow it is, you're going to need to find a guy who is not afraid and just kind of has a subconscious feel for when it's okay to make the move and the run. And I feel like Bubba, not only does Bubba have enough friends to where, if he gets caught behind a Penske, he'll be fine. If he'll get caught behind, some Chevys, he's good. I really feel like that. And then, I wish I could say Keselowski. They were so good at Daytona, but I really just feel like Bubba's been there. And this is going to be a situation where we see that he's quick. So
he's knocking on the door without a doubt. He's knocking on the door
for sure.
So that's.
Well, I hope I'm wrong and one of you guys is right. Let's put it that way.
You don't want to see Byron take the trifecta there?
Well, no, dead serious though. If Byron wins this week, does he make it to number 1 on your list next week, Finn?
I mean, yeah. You win 3 straight races.
Yeah, that kind of is what it is.
I mean, it's
especially
tough because of the super speedway thing. But again, winning 3 straight races is very, very difficult in NASCAR. Very, very difficult. So I think at that point it would be contrarian to not put him there. And then I give him a pass if it's a late race restart, because this is what the entire race is going to be, essentially a late race. It's coming. We already know what's coming. They're going to push. They're going to shove. Somebody's going to wreck. So I doubt he wins.
It's going to be super fun to watch.
So
I'm looking forward to it.
Power rankings won't be every week, though. I do feel like that's a section, especially with how lengthy it can be. I think that might be something I release on the counterpart, or maybe that's something we record on the side and drop that kind of separate of the podcast. But thanks for indulging me on that one this time, fellas.
Absolutely. That was a solid secret, Finn.
Anytime,
I did not see that coming, to be honest. I was like,
I had
what
no
is
idea.
he going to do? What is this going to be? Because since y'all didn't know, this guy came to us when we were discussing plans for the episode and stuff, and he's like, I got a surprise. And for Finn doing that, it could be just about anything.
It could be.
It could run the gamut of what we could expect on the episode, because a lot of times when we're chatting about what our plans are for the episodes and stuff like that, we kind of segment things. So this is kind of behind the scenes, I guess, right? What I tend to do is I kind of make sure that I'll get, particulars and kind of nail down some facts and try and get, some of the baseline stuff to work around. And then Finn breaks down the more stuff in depth, because he's forgotten more about racing than I've ever known. And the same thing with, and with Corey kind of just getting into it. So our real true depth comes from there. So Finn drives a lot of that. And then when we're trying to prep it, we kind of work around some of that kind of stuff. And my thought is, let me get whatever I can to tee him up and then kind of work from there. And when he came in, he was like, I got a surprise for you guys. I'm going,
He said it was going to start an
What
argument.
am I supposed
He
to
said we were
work
going to
with
have our
here?
first
What
argument.
facts can I lay down on this one?
Yeah.
What do we got?
I didn't
I think-
anticipate the Dan Snyder yoga.
I was going to say my job here is to assassinate petulant football team owners.
So
Well, sorry, not assassinate them. Pardon me, assassinate their character. That's what I meant to say, not assassinate.
Dale Jr., if you're somehow watching this because it came across your Twitter, at least these guys share your pain.
Mysteriously.
Buy the team.
Also, Dale Jr. is a big The Dangerous Summer fan, so there's that too. And then the last thing, Jeff, I know you won't let me walk away. It's the very end of the podcast, but I just want to apologize to everybody's eyes that are gonna have to watch this Jimmy Johnson scheme. It's brutal. It's bad. He's racing at Coda. He's racing at the 600, and Dan Snyder designed this scheme without a doubt.
That is some straight up word art on that car.
Oh, brother,
That is bad. That is some. I don't even know.
that is not
That
pretty.
thing looks like it's made out of Play-Doh, dude. It doesn't. It just looks terrible.
Like,
What were they thinking?
dude, all right, look at where the club, like the club being all the way over here underneath the window net, and then you look at the other side, and it's like all the way in the.
That's the one. That's the one that gets me. Like when you look at it from this angle and you see them like trying to just like let's jam the C up there towards the top and then bend the L here, and they were just like, how can we put the words anywhere that we can possibly put them so that will all show up? And that's kind of what they did. It's like they had the print be this big and they didn't think about what it was going to look like when it got to the car.
Yeah, there was zero
What in the
design.
hell?
Not only that, look, they even have it on top above Johnson. They just threw Club Wyndham on this car 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, 5 times.
Can we mention how much of an afterthought those random dots were? They were like, this car looks like the most boring thing ever. Let's put 18 dots on it.
Here's this one on the
Let's
front
give
that
it
doesn't
polka
actually
dots.
flow. This one on the front doesn't actually flow with
Make it
the flow of the car.
exciting.
No, they look
Uh,
terrible, dude. That's one of the worst paint schemes I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's brutal.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps things up for us this week. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. Please like, subscribe, share, and tell your friends. You can also find us on Twitter at intwreckpod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us, like, share, subscribe, talk racing with us on Sundays. Just about any time we will engage with fans. As you can tell from our episodes, we like to shout out. We like to talk with y'all. Please submit questions to the mailbag. We'd like to add that as a regular segment to the podcast. And we really like interacting with you guys. So please keep the questions coming.
Later, boys.
You can take what you want from me.